Okay.
Number 17, just to clear up or finalize a few things on 16. Another comment about tolerance stack and tolerances and how a few thousandths of an inch makes a difference. Years ago, I bought a 30 over 400 block, and we went to look at it, and I bought it, and my buddy says, well, do you know if it's 30 over? And I said, yeah, it is. He said, well, how do you know that? You got a micrometer in your pocket? And I said, no, I measured it. And he said, with what? And I said, well, with a measuring tape. And he said, you measured 30 thousandths over with a measuring tape. And I said, yeah. And he said, how'd you do that? Well, 30 thousandths is the same thing as 3 100ths, which is right at the same thing as a 32nd of, that doesn't sound like much, but it's a 32nd of an inch. 0.03 is the same thing as virtually as 3 100ths is 1/33rd, which is right at 1/32nd. And you can, back when I had better eyes at least, you can see a 32nd of an inch, at least good enough to know if it's been bored that much or not, on a 30 over motor. So all those little bitty thousandths of an inches, they turn into substantial amounts sometimes. I want to show you one other thing on this shifter too. These cables, it is important, the forward and back motion must be forward and back motion there. The side to side motion is also turned into forward and back motion, but some shifters have the linkage over here so that pushing this way pulls it, and then when they're over here pushing this way pushes it. So those can be totally backwards, and you've got to get this right here. When I was running this cable right here, this little bracket I talked about, I was concerned with the radius right here. This is well bigger than the 4-inch minimum radius recommended, but obviously the bigger the radius, the better you are. I said, well, we'll run it around that way and we'll come in with a great big radius. It doesn't work that way. It's going the wrong direction. So that's got to come here. And anytime you use these cables on a shifter, you got to be aware of which shifter, which way it's transferring the motion, and what's happening here. This bell crank that I showed you earlier, this bell crank, when it's on a Toyota shifter, which are used quite a bit in these things, this bell crank goes like this so that when you pull it, it pushes in. But on this shifter, it goes like this so when you pull it, it pushes out. So be aware that you got to know which is which on that thing. I want to just show you several things here that I've kind of dummied up to look at. We'll talk more about all of it as we finally install it, but just some things to be aware of. I've got my carpet here. This carpet goes down in this indented piece. That goes there. That's going to glue in like that. That's just almost flush across there. That is the look and the feel and the idea that I was going for. I am so pleased with that. This carpet, when I cut it, what I did, I took my CNC, I cut all my patterns. This is an outside pattern for the piece we just looked at. You lay that on the back of the carpet, you spray some spray paint around it, you take that off, and you have the spray paint pattern to cut that out. These are the patterns for these right here. That worked great. Got my seats back from the upholsterer the other day. When these seats come to me, this is a very reasonable seat, very nice style. They're articulated. Catch this bar back here, the back comes forward. That's important because we have that big luggage compartment back here to be able to access that. These seats are very reasonably priced at under $200 a piece, but they come with these velour, cheap-looking inserts in here, and then they got this great big Procar logo on it. So what I do is take these seats to the upholsterer and have him take this out and put this in. Another thing I do, these things also are set up for a crotch belt, and I don't want to use that, so we cover that. But for $200, I got a pair of seats looking like this. I've got about $600 in both seats and all the upholstery for both seats. I'm very pleased with it. The seat belts will come through these. The seat belts line up there Everything's good. Real happy with. I knew I needed a pattern here and told the upholsterer what I needed, and he stepped back, looked at it, put some marks on it with a piece of chalk, and I said, that looks perfect, stitch it up. Some other things we've got in. Let me show you this real quick. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but there's a set of brakes. This is the spindle assembly. This is a rear brake. It has the emergency brake already on it, but that's what our brakes are starting to look like. These emergency brakes right here, this is a mechanical emergency brake, parking brake by Willwood. I had been after Willwood for years. I didn't understand you could put a nice set of Willwood brakes on a hot rod, but there's no parking brake. You've got to do something else there, and I've been at Willwood for years. They needed to come up with something. This is actually their second generation of this, but why can't I put a Willwood parking brake on it? Why do I have to go somewhere else for the rest of the brake assembly? Well, I've been after them for a while, and then Carroll Shelby got after them for the very same thing. He said, hey, we're building these Mustang GT 500s, and we take the brakes off, throw them away, we put Willwood brakes on them, we don't have an emergency brake anymore. So I'd like to say it was I that got Willwood to build that, but I think it was Carroll Shelby that got Willwood to build that. But at any rate, we now have a complete Willwood assembly that works great. Where's my list? What else are we talking about? Oh, this piece these pieces here, frankly, they're sitting here just to get them out of the way, but there's the top of the dash. Got the instruments and the instrument panel. Just set those in there just to kind of get an idea. Let's go around here and look at. We've got the pedal assembly kind of mocked up here as well. That pedal assembly is on the seat tracks. The seats go all the way to the ground, to the floor, so that we don't lose that headroom. The seat tracks move here and your pedals move back and forth instead of your seats. But mocked all this stuff up to see how that works. Got my pedal mocked. The gas pedal's got a slide with them. Got that mocked up. That design's going to change a little bit. But again, more about that as we get into it. But show you something else here while I'm thinking about it. Even though we did this upholstery out not in-house, which is one of the very, very few things on this car that we do not do in-house, we're not going to do the paint, or we're not going to do the fiberglassing, and we're not going to do those seat upholsteries. But the only other upholstery on the whole car is the shifter boot and the emergency brake boot. We will do that in-house. My camera lady has done those in the past, and they're not that. We've got this matching material here, and we'll do those, and that'll be about the extent of the upholstery. Coming back here to the back of the car, let me show you this. Just like there's a second piece that goes on the front, there's a second piece that goes on the back. There's a stinger, I call it right here. This stinger unbolts to the rear bulkhead, comes out and off like so. The reason for that is so that if you change from the Porsche Audi Transaxle, you change this design instead of the chassis design to put a different Transaxle in it. Also, by getting that out of there, this Transaxle will go out the top or the bottom. This engine, top, bottom, whichever you want to do it, it takes about a minute to get it out. Once this goes on, you can see this plate right here catches these bolts right here. Transaxles are trying to do this with the tensions that the gear puts it in. This bolts to the bottom of the Transaxle here, to the side here, goes on like so. So there's big bolts that go in there like that. This all bolts up here. And then the transaxle all bolts to that to support it. It's right here. I support my mufflers. They go in kind of like that. I'll show you one more thing. How are we doing on time?
10.
Okay. Show you one more thing on this. This is an old Air Systems air conditioner. You can see the compressor song, the alternator song. This thing comes with a compressor bracket, and you can buy a matching alternator bracket. Tried extremely hard to make all that work and make the dimensions that, and they have various mounts for that bracket to make all that work, and I just can't do it. I need this to come here, I need that to go down, but it can't go too far down. Can you look over down here and see this belt, how it's, yeah. See the belt, see the clearance right here on this piece right here? Yeah. That's got to clear okay down there. This has got to be low enough, this has got to be low enough that the seat can go back. Basically, I'm fighting fractions of an inch to get some leg room. But these are the old brackets. I've made some test brackets here just out of scrap to kind of make sure I got my dimensions the way I want them. And then we cut new brackets out on the CNC, so that's kind of a mixture of old and new here on these brackets, the alternator as well. Come around here and look at this alternator bracket through that. What I've also realized on this is I hate to reinvent the wheel, but if I do, I want to improve on it. Well, these brackets are about $60, $70 a piece, so I've got $120, $140 worth of bracket there. Cutting it out on the CNC, I've got $10 worth of aluminum, zero labor. I've got about $5 worth of spacers from A&A and about $5 worth of hardware. So, quite content to redo these brackets from now on, spend 20 bucks on them instead of 120 bucks on them, and get them absolutely the way I want them. But that is another one of the things that I wanted to dummy up and actually see where that belt came and what kind of clearance I had there. Now that I have seen it, I am absolutely happy with it.
13.
How much?
13.
Well, final thought. If you don't support that rear transaxle back there with that stinger, you take a NASCAR car to Watkins Glen or Infineon and run it around a road course without a rear snout support like that, it doesn't last long at all. So I'm very, very happy with the way all that's done up. Still got some other stuff, but I'm going to call this a wrap on this one.